Yo, yo, yo. What's up? What's up? We're back. This is actually episode 1 redo. Yeah. And we're going to do this all over again. Better than we was before.
Absolutely.
You know? So we're going to get into it. Right till we get into it, we got 5 movies. It was actually 4, but we got 5 movies we're going to do. We'll be right back with it.
The Groove Pavement
podcast, talk show, and movie review,
where we break down the Blaxploitation era, the cinematic genre, the exploitation of the black culture and experience through film and media.
We'll also dive into the cast, the subgenres, the TV shows, and the music.
Outside of the films, we'll view some critical signs of the time and what these stories meant then and now, from entertainment to society to economics. The Groove Pavement.
Can you dig it, sweet mama?
Dig it.
So, I am Shawn Strong.
And I am Decarius McClearn.
And this is the Groove Pavement. We got 5 movies, like I said. We're going to be talking about The Cool World, which was
1963.
It was a documentary type. We're going to get that into a little bit. And we also have Black Like Me, which was
1964.
Yep. And the BlacKkKlansman, which y'all all know.
It's 1966.
But y'all may not know that there was an original one. So, which, like I said, the later one came in 2018. And the original one was a little earlier. And then lastly, we only talking about
The Klansman,
which was a great movie. A lot of stuff going on there.
1974.
Yeah. If y'all are watching this, I hope y'all are on Facebook, The Groove Pavement, and Hutsy TV on Facebook. So make sure y'all check that out. Make sure y'all follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We're also on YouTube, so subscribe to our YouTube.
Please subscribe.
Yes, so we can get those numbers up.
Get the likes up.
We'll be using social media strictly for promoting social media. So our full episodes, you only going to be able to see it on our website, and probably in Hutsy TV. Once we change things, Hutsy TV is going through doing some changes, so we're upgrading, and definitely you'll see the full episodes. Social media will just be partials, promos, and stuff like that, because you know how they like to take stuff down when using stuff. So, and this is fair use. The Groove Pavement, this is the pre-Blaxploitation era, so this was actually before all the grittiness that we know of, the Superflies, the Shaft, and all that. This was before that. And also, you have to keep in mind what was going on during the times of the 60s.
Yes. So 1963, if anybody remembers 1963, if you're of a certain age, you know that a lot of pivotal things happened. One being the assassination of John F. Kennedy. A lot of protests were going on. A lot of things like that. So The Cool World is a significant film.
A lot of stuff about these eras is, a lot of dynamics, a lot of politics. And that helped things evolve. So the motion picture industry, was going through some shifts. And you're going to see in a couple of these movies, like The Cool World was pretty much like a doc style. Shirley Clark was
the director. Wiseman Films produced it. Because of the times, Hollywood was not immune to those times. They felt the pull and the pressure from the social protest, from the Hollywood NAACP, and then also the Hollywood branch of the ACLU. Marlon Brando, Charlton Heston, a lot of those actor heavyweights threw their support around some of the concerns that the black community had as it relates to Hollywood. And so Hollywood, based on the financial trouble, they had that storm, and then also they had the storm of the protest as well. So they eventually had to lend their ear to the pressure that was being levied on them from the black community.
And then we also got Black Like Me, which we're not going to show nothing from The Cool World, but Black Like Me is an interesting flick. It's actually based on a true story about a guy, a journalist,
who at the height of the civil rights movement, he decides to go undercover and put on makeup and pretty much live life as a black man for several weeks to take in the black experience. Can I back up a little bit?
Yeah.
The cool world is significant is because some people are some of the critics say that it's the first blaxploitation movie.
Yeah.
All right, and then it launches several careers. Antonio Fargas,
which I know is
Huggy Bear.
Huggy Bear.
But he was also on Foxy Brown, Shaft, all of those movies. He's one of the great character actors of the time.
Right.
Clarence Williams III was in that movie, and that's Link Hayes from Mod Squad. You might recognize Clarence Williams from Tales from the Hood.
Yeah.
If you watch that kind of stuff.
And Sugar Hill.
Hill
is Wesley Snipes' father. Right?
Romelo's pops.
Yeah.
All right, and also Ronnie Clanton is in that movie as well, and you may recognize him from the Education of Sonny Carson. But also, little known fact: if you've ever seen the movie Death by Temptation, Ronnie Clanton is in that movie too.
What?
Yes.
And also, the Cool World. The soundtrack is done by the horn player.
The Dizzy Gillespie,
He's actually
quartet.
in it too, right?
Quintet.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dizzy Gillespie is in it, but the quartet, the quintet is definitely that's the soundtrack of the movie.
Right, and he even did an album with that name, The Cool World.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's definitely an interesting flick, because it shows the life of Harlem, the drugs and stuff like that. So I guess that's why they stated.
Yeah, it's focusing on the Royal Pythons. They're following that game in a gang in that semi-documentary style, and it's significant. Also, and we need to say that as well about the Cool World is that it was recognized by the National Library of Congress, National Film Registry, for its historicity and its aesthetics. So it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, so this is why we included. Like I said, this is the Pre-Blaxploitation. So, and the second flick, like we said, Black Like Me.
Yes.
We're going to get into a couple of clips of those. Very interesting. It's a lot of dynamics. So, mind you, this, one of the things we wonder is like, the actors that they chose, they could have chose some good actors or the appropriate actor for this particular movie.
James Whitmore is he's an excellent actor, but I don't know. Maybe the look. I don't know. Maybe the look would have been better.
All right, so one of the clips. So this is our second movie, Black Like Me. So definitely check it out. And then there's some dynamics in there. So we just want y'all to hear and see what's going on.
Fellow by the name of Horton?
That's right. You know him?
I'm him.
Oh, no. You're kidding me. Go on.
And I thought you were the man who never forgot a pair of shoes or a face.
Well, I'll be darned. I'm truly a son of a bitch. Now, wait a minute. You can't fool me. You're a colored man and you've been passing.
No.
Well, ain't that something? Well, how did you ever? That ain't shoe black.
No, it's done with drugs and dye and sunlight treatment.
Drugs?
Pills. Take them. I don't know how they work, but they do.
Well, I'll be... Oh, what's the big idea?
I want to find out what it's like to be a Negro in the South.
You can...
No, I'm not.
You gonna be stuck that way, Mr. Horton?
No, it'll wear off as soon as I stop taking the pills. The name is John.
John, huh? I guess you're really serious.
You're the one person who can help me.
Me?
Yes, you
How come? What can I do?
break me in. Now, after that, I don't want anybody to know, but you can teach me how to act right. If I could just hang around here, if I could learn to shine shoes, maybe.
You, Mr. Horton? John, excuse me. You're still too well dressed. You got to learn how to act. You talk too educated one way, And in another way, you got to get smarter. Yeah, you're gonna be a problem. You think it's easy being colored? For instance, man comes up and says, I'm here writing an article on race relations. What you say?
Well, if there's anything I can tell you, sir, I'll be only too glad to help.
You're through right now.
I must have sounded kind of stupid.
Yeah, kind of.
This is actually a journalist wanting to get a feel of what it is to be a Negro during those times.
Yeah, I respect this a little more than Slim Jesus, but yeah, that scene was significant because he got in contact with a local who knew the lay of the town, and I like the fact that he consulted with him to kind of learn the nuances of learning how to move within your blackness. It's not just putting on makeup and changing your hair a little bit. There's a whole experience to this that we can't take off, and so he had to immerse himself in it. So I also want to add this particular the actor that James Whitmore is opposite is a guy named Richard Ward. Richard Ward would go on to star in several blaxploitation movies. He'd be in Across 110th Street. He was actually in the Gordon Parks movie, The Learning Tree. His name was Booker Savage in that movie. That's when I first got exposed to Richard Ward, and then he also was in Mandingo.
Gordon Parks was the first black director of doing the blaxploitation.
Shaft.
How about another, huh?
No, thank you.
You're an odd one, aren't you? Don't you like your liquor? Usually you people don't have the same inhibitions that we do. We're all basically pure.
You know, we try and give our children a decent set of values. Good education. Our ministers preach sin and hell the same as yours.
Oh, sure. Still, I understand you people have more realistic views of sex than we do. You don't get so damn many conflicts, and that's a fact.
There's no real difference, Mr. Maynard. No real difference at all. Thank you for the drinks.
Wait a minute. We're just getting started. You have to understand, John, I have a scientific interest. I'm trying to write an honest thesis. Come on, sit down, please. Come on.
Tell me, will you, what your research methods are? Do you use open-end questions, subjective tests?
Are you in the field or something?
I managed to read a book now and then.
And you don't think there's any difference? The point is, Negroes regard sex as a total experience. Anything that makes you feel good is morally right for you. Personally, I wish I could live that way.
I cannot agree that there is any difference between our morality and yours.
Well, how can you debate that? Now, if you'd read the Berkeley study...
That's one of the books I managed to get through.
Well, then, what about the low value placed on virginity, the large number of illegitimate births, the general instability of the Negro family? You know, these are all facts,
That
John.
may be, but I contend that it's due to environment and not to inherent differences. If you will just compare the sexual attitudes of low-income whites with those of low-income Negroes, I think you'll find a definite correlation.
Well, that's exactly the kind of comparison I'm interested in. The trouble is, I usually can't find any of you people to talk to. Half the time, all they do is yazz you to death, and the rest of the time, they can't even get out a straight
That's because you question low-income groups and ignorant slobs like me.
Him being, disguised as a Negro, he's hearing it from a white guy, his perspective.
You know what's interesting is that as he takes on the blackness, he kind of takes on the angst and the anger with it, and that's what I thought was significant. Is that he's really truly getting offended by what this guy is saying, because he's saying all the contradictory, well, I should say, racist type of things without context, and that's part of the problem that we have as black people, is that a lot of people are speaking on our issues without any type of historical context or social context. And so when you replace or when you take context out, you are ripe for misrepresentation.
Yeah. So there's a lot of dynamics in there. There was some tennis going back and forth. And later on, you watch it, he ends up trying to choke him out. Right.
Well, you know what the reoccurring theme here is that just about every white person, every white male that he's across from, they're always questioning him about his sexuality. Even when he was in the car, remember he was in the car and the guy was saying, "Have you ever been with a white girl?"
Yeah.
And,
He
you know,
was
so
pressing it, too.
it just seemed like this was a reoccurring fascination, you know, with how we navigate our sexuality.
Yeah, and so it also makes you think about the movie Birth of a Nation. You know,
absolutely.
That was the start of, you know, putting those seeds out there in people's head that, you know, black men were going to rape white women.
That was a societal typecasting. That they made us all the bigger Thomas in that Birth of a Nation movie. So we became one big black guy who could not control his urges, did not want to work, lazy, manipulative, all those things that would persist and really persist now. We're still trying to break away from that.
Yeah, so, and you see how media pushes that propaganda as well. So that's, you know, the things that makes people think that a certain type of people are a certain way. You know, media is definitely one of the culprits that pushes. So we're going to go on this third scene. This last scene is kind of interesting. This is when folks find out.
How do you like that? I knew there was something phony about you. You got a lot of nerve coming into people's homes pretending you're folks. Take a look at that, Papa. Just take a look at that.
Would you let me explain to you, please?
Yeah, sneaking in here all painted up.
Will you let me explain?
And I'll let you sleep in my own bed. The other week, when they hauled us all in, there wasn't one white man, woman, or child from this town opened his mouth in support. Put 29 of us in jail for disturbing the peace. What peace?
You know what it would have meant for one white man to support us at that time? And I don't mean just talk. I do now. Why don't you read what I've written before you twist it all around?
Because it won't make any difference. That's just words.
You'll read what I've written, won't you, Snookum? I know you'll understand. Please.
Didn't you tell us you were from Shelby, Texas? Or was that a lie, too? Wasn't that where they had that school integration riot in Shelby?
Yes, it was.
Where were you then?
Well, as a matter of fact,
What
that's
were
what I
you doing
first-
then?
I had an assignment to do a story on it. It was just straight stuff and factual. Believe me, that's all I could do.
One single white man in each county willing to give up his life for justice. You know what a difference that would make?
White Southerner has to know what it's like to be a Negro. Really know.
And you know what it's like, huh? After 10 weeks or 3 months or whatever it is, you know.
I don't know. And I can never know. Any more than you can know what it's like to be inside my skin. And the point is that we've got to keep trying. So, that blackness on your face, it'll come off, won't it? You wipe that blackness off, and they'll treat you like a man. We black, in a white man's country. There ain't nothing we can do about it. If you don't understand that, you don't understand nothing.
Black Like Me,
1964.
Very interesting movie. So we definitely, you should definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. It is online. A lot of the stuff you can find online.
Yeah, it's actually on YouTube. I want to point out that there's a few people in there. There's Roscoe Lee Brown. He's a kind of a popular actor. He wasn't so much blaxploitation, but his voice and his look too. His look was very distinctive.
Forehead.
And then also Sorrel Book, who was Boss Hogg from the Dukes of Hazzard, was also in that movie. So
Cool. Black Like Me. So definitely check that out. Very interesting. It has a lot of different points. And like we mentioned, it was a journalist actually did this during the 50s. We're gonna go into our third movie,
which is the BlacKkKlansman.
The BlacKkKlansman. So most of us know BlacKkKlansman, John Washington and Spike Lee joint.
Hello, this is Ron Stallworth calling. Who am I speaking with?
This is David Duke.
Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. That David Duke?
God, last time I checked. What can I do for you?
Well, since you asked, I hate blacks. I hate Jews, Mexicans, and Irish, Italians, and Chinese. But my mouth to God's ears, I really hate those black rats. And anyone else, really, that doesn't have pure white Aryan blood running through their veins.
I'm happy to be talking to a true white American.
God bless white America.
But there's actually an original, which was in the 60s, 66.
1966.
But they have different storylines.
He's a very, well, it's a white guy playing a black guy, but he's a very fair-skinned black man, black jazz musician in L.A., has a different life from Turnerville, Alabama. And he has a white girlfriend in L.A., and he finds out that the Klan has killed his daughter. And so he comes back into town and he infiltrates the Klan. He's posing as a white man, and he infiltrates the Klan to get revenge on behalf of his daughter.
And like we mentioned, like a lot of the movies at the time had multiple names, you know. So this movie was also called I Crossed the Color Line. Very interesting that, you know, the BlacKkKlansman and I Crossed the Color Line. Mm-hmm. So there's different dynamics. We talked about that. I guess it may have been a overseas thing. A lot of times when the same movie be filmed or be distributed overseas, they'll change the name. But it's definitely different from the main, the most known BlacKkKlansman, which was the Spike Lee joint.
Yes.
And the Spike Lee joint is based off a true story.
Yeah, it's based on Ron Stallworth, who infiltrated the Ku Klux Klan in Colorado. So it's kind of like a biographical tale.
Okay, some of the clips from the original BlacKkKlansman we're going to show and talk a little bit about that.
We've discussed this marriage business so much my jaws hurt every time it comes up again. Let's face the facts. You know what happens when you mix nitro and glycerin? Well, I don't want a bunch of two-legged time bombs running around my door.
Do you consider yourself a time bomb?
What's that got to do with it?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious there's been some mixing somewhere in your background. And it hasn't hurt you any.
I'm still a Negro, baby. I'm still a Negro. You know what they say about one drop of African blood.
Aren't you contradicting what you just said about mixing?
I don't give a damn about contradictions. We're not talking about some abstract problem in logic. We're talking about the hard facts related to love and marriage and kids.
Kids? I'd like that.
Yeah, sure you would. You'd just love to take one of my kids home to see its grandparents, wouldn't you? Well, hell, baby, you wouldn't be able to go home yourself. Your past would be dead, you know that? Your life would start from the moment we met.
So that is the main actor who was supposed to be black or half black, and he has a percentage of blackness in him.
Yeah, there's
in multiple degrees of that.
Yeah, it's funny how society, this society, is obsessed with color, and varying degrees of blackness is how they determine how they would treat you. So I just want to read some comical stuff to you. If anybody doesn't know what a mulatto is, it's a person that's mixed race, obviously, but they are half black and half white. Which
most people know that term.
Yeah, but genetically doesn't make sense because, if you study, Mendel and all of that, I don't know if there's a half and half type of situation, but then it goes to quadroon, which is you are 1/4 or 25% black. And then it goes even more ridiculous, octoroon. Octoroon means that you're 1/8 black. They can go all the way down to 1/64 black.
Dang.
Wow. So that's Sang-Meli, 1/64 black. I don't know how they would be able to determine that at that time. How would you determine if I'm 1/64 black, and how would that even show up? I don't know.
Maybe the lightness of your forehead or something. It depends on which way the sun is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little different.
I don't know.
All right. But yeah, the movie is, during, it had some KKK stuff in there too. So, and this, which is why it pushes this guy, the guy that you saw, the main actor, to do stuff at the end, which, we're not going to tell the whole movie. We just want y'all to get some premise of what's going on and these eras and these movies that later on, like we say, that pushes up into the actual era.
And you know, he's acknowledging, even though he could probably pass, he's acknowledging that, you know, we're still going to have difficulty in this society. It's not just as simple as no one gets married in a vacuum. Marriages are very political, even though we feel that they're very personal. But a lot of society has everything to do with the choices that we make, who we sleep with, you know. So all those things he's considering, and he's from the South.
So even, you know, biracial relationships was even worse. So, you know, there wasn't no mixed relationships, you know, that was just open out during these times.
White. White. Yeah, I could pass for white. Hair. Credentials. Money.
You know, it reminds me of Imitation of Life.
Yes.
In the sense where the girl, she didn't want to pass, even though her mother was black. And that, I think that movie was earlier. So in this particular guy, this guy is a percentage of black, and he knows he can pass for white because it can work for him.
Yeah. So he's not ashamed of his blackness here, but he takes advantage of the fact that he is white, or he has whiteness to infiltrate the Klan.
All right. So this next clip.
The gentleman at the bar, his brother was also killed the same night as Jerry Elwood's daughter was.
Right.
And he was trying to integrate a cafe downtown when he found out that the Civil Rights Bill had passed. So he said, you know, I want a cup of coffee at the city cafe. So he goes down and he winds up getting killed by the Klan. And so his brother is trying to figure out how to get, you know, revenge, how to avenge his brother's death. And what he does is he calls some guys from Harlem to help get some get back on the Klan.
All right. It is very interesting, and make sure you guys pay attention to who the actors are.
Yeah.
Because they, you know, a lot of these actors that we're seeing, you know, will become later on staples. So this is their beginning. This is their come up.
Now, you all know what's been going on around here in the past few days. You all know that the authorities have done nothing about the situation. You all know that we have not been treated like human beings. And what does it mean to be treated like a human being? It means being treated with some respect. But how do you get it? Command it. And you can't command anything unless you got what it takes to make it stick. Force. That sound reasonable, Joe?
Sounds reasonable, Farley.
Ever try to figure out what force was? Or where you got it from? Of course not. If you had, you would have thought of it long before I did. And man, it's so simple. Just like ordering from Sears catalog. I got hold of me of one of those New York newspapers, and I found out who handled the stuff. And I ordered me some. And here he is, Raymond Estes. You're all a bunch of cowardly Uncle Toms. You don't deserve to be saved. But I'm gonna save you anyway. In 48 hours, I can have you all crawling off your knees with a snarl in your teeth that can be heard all the way to Washington, D.C. Look at you! If your proud ancestors could see you now, they'd spit in your cringing faces. Your forefathers were proud men, proud men. Follow me for 48 hours, and you'll never have to follow anybody again. Don't misunderstand my purpose for being here. I am not a crusader. I create crusaders. I'm a professional. I work for two things: money and my self-respect. In that order.
hopefully y'all know who that guy is at the end who speaks last, because he's definitely a staple in the blaxploitation era.
Yes, that is the incomparable, legendary Max Julian of the Mac. Also Thomasine and Bushrod, and also Uptight.
Very classic. So that scene has some dynamics because he wants to, get these other brothers to change, but some of these brothers, are in the middle.
I mean, and when I used to teach history, in the Dutchess County Jail, and the hardest thing I was trying to get them to understand is, everybody has they play Monday morning quarterback with history. Well, I would have did this and I would have did that, and I was saying, you can't. You don't know what it's like to not have anywhere to go in black society when the police department, the judges, your politicians, all of these people might have ties to the Klan, even as far as the FBI. So when something happens to your community, they just did it, and with little to no recourse. And then we saw what happened with Emmett Till in 1955. They were identified. It was obvious what happened, and I don't even think the jury took an hour to deliberate. And they so these were the kind of things. So when people say, "Well, I would have did this and I would have did that," you have no idea the kind of fear and the kind of pressure that those people are under. So it's easy to say from somebody from up north to say, "Well, you shouldn't take this." And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm going to take it because I need to survive."
Right, and that was the difference between blacks from the South and blacks from the North, because they, their lifestyle was so different and their conditioning was different.
Yeah, there was oppression. The conundrum that people have in the North is that we know that racism exists, but we can't it's hard to prove. So there's more plausible deniability. Where down South, there was no question. It was overt. One of the things that I thought I should bring attention to is, remember the name that he called, Max Julian's character calls everybody. He says, all of you are cowardly Uncle Toms. Uncle Tom is actually a misnomer.
Yeah.
Uncle Tom, the character is from a book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, from Harriet Beecher Stowe. Uncle Tom is the protagonist and the hero in the movie. Uncle Tom is the one that, instead of brutalizing his own people, he would rather take the abuse himself. The person that they're really referring to, or the misnomer that has persisted in the black community for years, is Uncle Tom. So when someone calls somebody an Uncle Tom, they're pretty much calling them a sellout. But there was an Uncle Tom, or there was a sellout in the Harriet Beecher Stowe book, and his name was Sambo.
So why are we calling people Sambos?
So why are we not calling people Sambos when they sell your people out?
Well, we got to change it up. You Sambo out.
So.
All right, and this last scene, still on the bar scene, is a scene that you thought was very interesting.
Yes.
Grady, he about to get busy. Grady gonna talk Grizzly for a hot second.
There won't be no more rebel rousing on my premises. You hear me?
He was about to get busy. Grady told him, "Get up out of here."
He pulled the shotgun out on him.
So definitely check that movie out. That's the original titled BlacKkKlansman, also known as I Crossed the Colored Line.
I thought that was powerful because there were black business owners that were successful back then that secretly funded the movement, like G.H. Gaston, people like that. And he wasn't opposed to helping. He just knew that this was going to be trouble adding those two guys to the mix. And what he was saying was, you're willing to integrate and pay twice the amount to be where you're not even wanted. And that was one of the things that, my mom and dad, my mom actually sat in one time, when she was in Florida. But that was one of the things I had the hardest time understanding, was why are we trying to go someplace where we're not wanted? And as I got older, I understood that it wasn't just the segregation. It was just the restriction on rights as well.
We took a look at 3 of the movies thus far. We talked a little bit about The Cool World, Black Like Me, the original BlacKkKlansman. So at this minute, we're going to take a little break, little spot from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Have you ever wondered about creative energy? About how it's channeled and molded into masterful works of art, music, poetry, sculpture, fiction, dance, or drama? Every creative has a story, and at Speak On It podcast, we get the makers to talk about the passion they have for their craft. Speak On It is where the creatives tell their stories about what they do and why they do it. Listen on iTunes, Google, Spotify, iHeart, and wherever else you find your podcasts.
Hudsy, a localized storytelling platform and the concept of platform cooperatives. Based on a vision that merges democratic ownership and governance with cutting-edge technologies, the platform cooperative model points the way towards a fairer, more equitable sharing of resources, equity, and attention, with the goal of empowering local communities. Hudsy, we're taking back our stories and our media, one town at a time.
All right, so this last movie in this first part of the pre-Blaxploitation era is The Klansman.
Yeah.
This movie has a lot of stuff going on in it too, and some guys that you may be familiar with as well.
Yeah, 1974 film by Terrence Young. He actually acquires the rights to the screenplay, and it was actually based on a book called The Burning Cross by William Bradford Huey. And Terrence Young bought the rights to make it a movie. And pretty much it's about a local sheriff that's trying to keep the peace in the town. But, you know, peace absent justice is not peace at all. It's just the calm before the storm. So what happens is that there's a white woman that's going to get raped by a black guy. And the KKK, which is presiding over that small Alabama town, decides to go on a rampage. And it's going to set off a black vigilante in response to their response.
And the end is interesting too.
Yes, it
is.
Because
you see some, it seems like they may have been on the same team because of the ideology.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So this first scene, this is actually the opening scene, which is very interesting. You find it interesting, right?
Yes, I do.
Why so?
Why? Because my father's from Smithfield, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah, so country North Carolina. And one of the things that he grew up by the Neuse River. My father didn't have running water until he got here up to Newburgh at age 15. All right, so he lived by the Neuse River, and one of the signs over his city back then was "Welcome to Klan Country."
Wow.
So that was his reality. His life was totally segregated until age 15 when he comes up here to live with my uncle. And so when I see signs
your uncle
in the South,
was the name Tom, was it?
I did have an uncle named Thomas, by the way. Okay. That's no lie.
Hey, Uncle Tom, can you pass me?
But he was no Sambo.
Good to know. Good. That's the title of the song is "In the Name of Good Christian People," and the movie is called The Klansman. And that's what I'm saying. This movie has some heavy stuff in it. In a sense.
Yeah. I wanted to bring everybody's attention when the clip first opens up. It says, "Welcome to Wallace Country." If you didn't know what Wallace Country was, Wallace Country is the state of Alabama. And that's a nod to the segregationist governor, George Wallace. I'll give you a quote from George Wallace, because he was one of the main gatekeepers, one of the, I would say the sentinel for the segregated way of life in the South. During his 1963 inaugural address, he says this: "In the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth, I draw a line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny. And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. So when you saw a sign like "Welcome to Wallace Country," you might want to keep driving as a black person. It's interesting. I told you both of my parents are from the South, right?
Right.
Well, when we would go down south for family reunions, I never understood until I got older why my mother would cook all night. She would cook all night, make cakes, fill the cooler up, and we would go down, but we wouldn't really stop anywhere except for like a rest area. And what my mom would later tell me is that because when she was a little girl, there were certain areas down south that they could not stop. So I had an uncle that was a Tuskegee Airman, and he had to give his wife the gun when he would go to a gas station or whatever. And there were specific towns that you could stop. If anybody knows what this book is, you ever saw the movie? What's his name?
Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala Ali. The Green Book is based on this. This was the Uber guide of your day. If you were black and you wanted to know how to navigate, there was a guide that helps you know where you could stop and what businesses would actually patronize. So this was our Uber guide back in the day. I actually owned 3 of these, and this was a part of my mom and dad's reality. So I carry that with me. And I make it my business to know what it is that they went through, and I'm going to tell my son the same thing, that wasn't that long ago.
And good. The Green Book was a good movie, and it shows some dynamics between him and his driver. This next scene is pretty much going to tell itself. You just got to watch it and then get a feel of what y'all think of it. And this is in the church. And they gonna talk about some stuff, and you guys gonna hear it, and you're gonna see how you absorb it. She goes to church, and they wasn't feeling her.
All right, so there's so much to unpack here. The Klan is a Christian organization.
Yep.
I think that needs to be pointed out, and that's what's gonna be contextual for this part of the conversation. The Klan was influenced by there's this publication called The Anthropology of People, but it was known back in 1891 as the Caucasian. And what they did is they took social Darwinism, they took biblical canon, and they mixed it into this mytho kind of racist type of narrative. And the Klan's whole goal is for a pure white Anglo-Saxon nation. All right, so they were anti-miscegenation. For those who don't know who miscegenation is, it's the mixing of races, intermixing of races. So they grab biblical canon and they have sort of this racial exegesis of biblical canon. And it's kind of 3 schools of thought that, they kind of wrestle with. One is monogenesis, which means that all races evolved from Adam and Eve. Well, that doesn't fit well with the Klan narrative. So then you have polygenesis. That fits better with their narrative. So polygenesis is that white people derived from Adam and Eve, and there were other races that were here before. So the white races come from Adam and Eve, and those are the best people on earth, okay? And then there was evolution and biology, and they just kind of throw that out the window. But those prevailing thoughts kind of controlled how they felt about it. So what are some of the biblical justifications for the Klan feeling the way that they feel about black people? I'm so glad people asked. Okay. So Genesis 9, right? Genesis 9 tells the story of Noah and his 3 sons, and after God saves them, Ham, which is supposed to be the progenitor of black people, mocks Noah in his drunkenness and his nakedness. And as a result, when Noah comes to himself again, he curses Ham's son, Canaan. The problem with that is that Noah and his wife, the Shem, Ham, and Japheth have the same mother and father. Now, me and my brother have the same mother and different fathers, and we look alike. Mm-hmm. So wouldn't Japheth and Shem kind of look like Ham? Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's the clan, so they're ignoring that. So, so the reason why Genesis 9 is important is because it provides the justification for slavery. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people say, well, it's in the Bible, but no one really explains why they justify it. Here's the other school of thought here. All right. So you have this school of thought called British Israelism. All right. British Israelism is basically white people are saying that kind of align themselves with the clan is that after King Solomon dies and his son takes over, there's a civil war between the Israelite camps, and they split off into 10, and there's 2. So some people think that after the Assyrian invasion and the exile that takes place afterwards, those people go into Turkey, Greece, southern Russia. They also go into Western Europe and eventually the British Isles. And so what they feel is that those white people are a part of the 10 lost tribes because they never made it back to Israel. So what you have is a racial exegesis of canon, but what it is an eisegesis of biblical canon. When you exegete, you interpret, you're trying to interpret critically what scripture means or what a text means. When you eisegete, you're pretty much putting on your suppositions, your biases, your agenda into it. Mm. So really what the Klan did is and it's kind of creative, they created this whole narrative so that they can have this pure white Anglo-Saxon nation. And they used the Bible to do so.
Very interesting. And then, you know, with all the other stuff, you know, we got the political stuff. And mind you, we're showing you movies, so this is entertainment, this is media. So all these underlining things is purposeful, which we'll talk about when we wrap up. We got this.
And you know, like, I have to say that it's really shameful how they treated that young lady who was raped. Mm-hmm. And it was all because they treated her like a pariah because of the unforgivable black stain that was on her. Mm. And I guess, and you know, go back and see the movie. Anybody that's watching, go back and see the movie because they wanted her to live her life in perpetual shame and sadness because of what happened to her. So the fact that she held her head up must have been like, oh, well, did you like what happened to you? And so what she's trying to do is move on with her life, and people are treating her like she's got a scarlet letter on her head.
Mm. And even her husband left her.
Yes.
So we just throwing some, you know, stuff out there that...
all in the name of good Christian people, like Mavis Staples was singing.
In the beginning. Mm-hmm. All right, so we got this other scene, and this may be our last scene. Oh, we probably got a couple more. All right, so we're going to check out this next scene. This is talking about, you know, with the sheriff. So this also... one of the questions I was asked in the past was, what was the purpose of slavery? And been told by a history teacher that it was strictly economics. And, you know, a lot of these things, you know, some people may not grasp it, but, you know, just say if you owned a Walmart and, you know, you had 1,000 employees and they worked for 10 years, but they never got paid.
Your profit is crazy.
Yeah, real crazy. System, guys.
That was deep.
Yeah, system. It's a lot of stuff deep. In there.
A lot to unpack there too. You want to start?
Like to hear it? Here you go. Yeah. So like I mentioned, you know, the underlinings of slavery. You know, if they were to move, that's what we talked about before. We mentioned about the difference between the North and the South. But those who are, you know, who had plantations, like, you know, they was baking cake and they had generational wealth because off of the labor that they made. And, you know, you had police, which most people know police were put in place to protect, you know, keep the slaves in check. And, you know, it's just like, hey, if they were to leave, you know, this is going to be a discomfort for us, you know. So it's a lot going on there. So And this is right here. And I know a lot of us haven't seen this movie, but you should check it out. You know.
And a lot of people think slavery ended in 1865. It did not. All right. Slavery changed clothes, and so I'm a product of that. Like I said, I'm a product. We talked about this months ago. I said I'm a product of the Great Migration. I'm a first generation New Yorker. My parents were Southern, and my grandfather was actually a sharecropper, and my grandmother was actually a domestic. And so when I see scenes like this, I'm, you know, it hits me different, all right? Because a lot of my relatives that had to come up north were kind of forced out of the South due to the system and due to the challenges that they faced there. But what's important to know here is how dependent the South was on black labor at one time. And then when those blacks go up north, they kind of they're able to make somewhat of a life for themselves. But by the 1970s, if you notice, the neighborhoods where the black people live, these urban centers, start to become deindustrialized. So I think, you know, that systemically, it kind of took the teeth out of the movement when you take that economic component out of it.
It's all economics, right? It's all economics. All right, so this next scene is a different OJ.
Bars.
Yeah.
Bars.
It felt a little different. And there's still folks that do feel like how OJ felt, you know?
And so OJ goes Christopher Dorner in this movie. He goes Django Unchained before Django Unchained.
Yeah, he actually goes to a funeral and busting some shots at the funeral.
Yeah, this is not Nardberg from The Naked Gun. This is a different OJ right here that you're not used to seeing.
This is before the glove. You know, so it's the juice. So that was our 5 movies. We had The Cool World, Black Like Me, The BlacKkKlansman, the original, and the 2018. We just brought that up because most people just know that name. And this last joint, the Klansman, which has a lot of dynamics of it. Like I said, this is the pre-Blaxploitation before we get into Blaxploitation. So we just had to, you know, have something before it so we can get into it and create some awareness of it. So what do you think of these movies? It has a common theme, you know, if y'all all put it together. You know, the KKK is in a couple of these movies, and like we mentioned, if you know about how the Hollywood started the industry, you know, you had some Jews who started it, but then how blacks were put in the film, they were, you know, used for certain purposes.
Song and dance.
Yeah, so which we talked about before. So it's just very interesting about these particular movies. We just talked about these particular movies because when we get into the 70s, it's starting to feel a little different, but you know what's underlying.
You know, for the Klansmen, a lot of times when I don't just look at movies for the entertainment value.
Right.
I look at it for, you know, what are you trying to say to me? And so with a writer or a director, you have a voice. And what are you saying through these characters to me? What is your attitude? What is your opinion? And one of the things that stuck out to me was how he put the conflict. There was always tension between black men and black women, and they always did that. There was always somebody white that was present, and they were able to argue out and hash out their differences. And I just want to ask a rhetorical question. How many of those people, those other communities, have these arguments in front of you? That's all I want to know. I want that to sizzle in your spirit.
Sizzle.
Because a lot of these arguments, a lot of these, and you know, because every community has these kind of discussions, but they don't have them in front of you. You have them in front of them.
Yes, and that's what also maybe ask the question, like, why did they make these movies? You know, what, you know, for them to have this dialogue, you know, it was thought up, you know, it's preconceived, and you know, now it has a stage, these words. And then going into the 70s, why did they, put these individuals in these particular places? So it's just very interesting to find out, how these things came about, the writing and stuff like that. So again, I'm Shawn Strong.
And I am Decarius McClearn.
So make sure y'all follow us on social media, our Facebook page, our Instagram. We're on YouTube, and we'll be on SoundCloud as well as Hutsy. Make sure y'all follow and like Hutsy TV, the Facebook and Instagram as well. So please check that out. We're going to end this out on this bumper. Y'all know what it is.
The Groove Pavement.
Podcast, talk show, and movie review.
Where we break down the blaxploitation era, the cinematic genre, the exploitation of the black culture and experience through film and media.
We'll also dive into the cast, the subgenres, the TV shows, and the music.
Outside of the films, we'll view some critical signs of the time and what these stories meant then and now, from entertainment to society to economics. The Groove Pavement.
Can you dig it, sweet mama?
Dig it.